fact news you can trust.
Good evening and welcome to the show. Hope you guys had a great Christmas weekend, as well lots of news over this weekend. I was very eager to come back and make this episode, and I just wanted to remind everyone to stay safe and always be on alert around you. It's a very crazy time right now, especially if you live in a big city in the States. So let's get into it. Now, the Nashville Explosion is full of mystery and some very questionable motivations. Let me give you the basic timeline first, and then I'll get into the analysis. Around 1:22 a.m., a white RV arrived at the 2nd Avenue, and right in front of the AT&T building. Now, this RV was then parked for at least 5 hours. And then at 6 a.m., Nashville police responded to a report of shots being fired near 2nd Ave, which is the location that the RV was parked at. Police said that they saw a suspicious vehicle outside nearby the AT&T transmission building, and it was this car. And then people that called the police were at least the residents within the area. Then sometimes around 6:30, the explosion occurred. This is along the 2nd Avenue. Now, police said it was linked to a recreational vehicle and it appeared to have been an intentional act. However, prior to the explosion, the RV played this message: "Evacuate now. There is a bomb. A bomb is in this vehicle and will explode." Now, this message was heard from a mechanical female voice. Following the explosion, the majority of the damage had occurred to the streets and the window shops. But initially, there were no reported deaths, and except 3 people were injured. They were transported to the hospital. And then at around noon, AT&T's internet and telephone services were disrupted in the Nashville area. An AT&T spokesperson confirmed the outage was linked to the explosion reported. The outage led to a widespread 9/11 issues in the Nashville area, as well as the telecommunications issues in the Nashville's International Airport, which had halted the outbound flights. At around 3:30 p.m., the Federal Aviation Administration declared the sky in the Nashville area as national defense airspace. Now, then finally around 4 p.m., authorities have found human remains in the vicinity of the explosion in the downtown Nashville area. The identity of the remains wasn't confirmed at that time, and it wasn't immediately clear if the remains were connected to the Friday morning's explosion. But over the next 2 days, basically the Saturday and the Sunday, the FBI investigated and concluded that a man by the name of Anthony Quinn Warner was the person of interest. He had an RV parked behind his house, according to a Google Map image. However, the DNA examination at the explosion site shows that Warner may have been killed by either the explosion or some sort of an event leading to it. Thus, there's no actual investigation against Warner that could be either to prove or deny his involvement. So this whole series of events occurred in a quick span of a day or two. In fact, this event seems to be so out of the ordinary way of doing things that both sides of the spectrum have yet to address it. But before I get into that though, I want to break down and analyze who would potentially want to blow up a street. The first possibility, which is that the legacy media is trying to paint on Trump, is an almost non-existent possibility. This is based on the fact that, for example, according to this New York Post article, Anthony's motivation for this case is almost non-existent. The FBI agent had spoken to people who had previously worked with Warner if he was paranoid about 5G technology. This person by the name of Friedrich says that the agents, Warner, never mentioned 5G being one of his scares. Therefore, he, quote, "Nice guy, he was a techie guy. Didn't mean anything negative about that." He told NBC this, but the article contradicted itself, saying that Warner was apparently afraid of 5G. And in other reports, he is an apparent Trump supporter. But this guy has no pre-existing history with this type of motivation. If he was a tech guy, why would he be afraid of 5G? As well, the RV was parked for 5 hours before it exploded, and the time of the explosion is early morning. This means that the bombing was not aimed at killing people, especially the fact that there was a message that played repeatedly saying the bomb will blow up. People were evacuated, and the bomb blew up after people cleared out of the area. This also stops the narrative that it was aimed at killing responding police officers. We know this is not true because the officers should and would have evacuated as well. Also, if the incident had anything to do with Trump, it would not make sense because there's no actual reason for Trump to blow up a street or buildings that are just going to cause more damage to taxpayers. It also does not seem like a terrorist attack either, because no real group or anyone has claimed this attack. In fact, neither Trump's side nor the left side has said anything major about it. The silence is actually quite scary. As well, the RV is definitely not the same one. This tweet compared the minor differences between the two RV. The one that was parked at Werner's house has 3 stripes, whereas the car parked at the location of the explosion only had 2 stripes. So let's talk about the real possibility then. So let's say the AT&T communication went down, Wi-Fi, internet, mobility services went down, including emergency response 911 lines. However, this happened about 6 hours after the explosion. You could say that there were backup generators or batteries running for around 6 hours, which makes sense given that most infrastructures have backups. According to the AT&T website, a statement on Sunday says the AT&T building on the 2nd Avenue suffered significant damage in the blast. That facility includes connection points for regional internet services as well as local wireless internet and video. In the hours that followed the explosion, our local service remained intact through temporary battery power. Unfortunately, a combination of explosion and resulting water and fire damage took out a number of backup power generators intended to provide powers to the batteries. But the thing is, this RV is supposedly exploded and it took out more than just that side of the building. Take a look at this video. The video shows the exact moment in which the explosion happened. Notice the point of concentration on the fire. It was actually on the opposite end of the RV, which was parked on the left side. But the actual explosion seems to have occurred on the right side. This makes me question whether the RV was actually the one that had the bomb. Possible, or that another case of explosion occurred at the same time. From the right side there. Or even maybe both had bombs. But because if you look and watch the video here, we know that lights travel faster than sound, and you see the whole area turning bright red first because of the light. But then as you watch it, it shows that the central focus of the blast energy seems to be concentrating and sucking the explosion a bit back into the middle to form a column. As well, this image shows a stream of air going downwards just before the large explosion set in. Though it doesn't tell us exactly what went into the air or from the air, there seems to be some type of a thin object that was either launched into the area or launched out of the area. Look at this Fox News 13's picture. It seems that the side that took more damage from the explosion was actually the left side in the picture, which is the opposite side from the RV that was parked. How would a bomb cause that much damage to the building on the opposite side of the street? Wouldn't the RV's container body lessen the impact of the explosion too? And in this picture, the left side is where the previous video had shown the explosion point, whereas the right side is where the AT&T building is. It is also the right side that the RV was parked on. It's also strange that the airspace in Nashville was declared national defense airspace, which means potentially it was something from the sky. And now we have details that apparently there were gunshots about half an hour before the explosion at around 6 a.m. in the morning. And we don't know if those gunshots were real or fake, but apparently they found bullets at the scene. It's also weird that if a real gunfight had occurred, all of it ended up within half an hour, and no one saw anything about it. There was no videos. As well, what exactly was targeting the streets? If the RV contained a bomb, it would have the impact to actually destroy the RV itself, to the point that where the pieces of the large vehicle are no longer found or they're shredded to tiny pieces. Let me just summarize before I move on though. Take this time to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content so far. As well, join us on our social media pages. I'm ashamed to say that I'm more active on Twitter than on Parler right now, but it's a good way to get information. As well, if you have tips, tag me in them. Okay, so the targeting of the bombing wasn't actually people. Otherwise, why would you announce it through the RV? The person of interest, identified as Anthony Quinn Warner, has an RV parked in his backyard. That is the only conclusion the FBI has concluded. And there's no real motivation for acting this way either. The body is not found. It's been shredded apparently. He was potentially dead way before this all happened. And the motives is still unclear. It just doesn't make sense to be personally motivated. Now, as of 3 p.m. on Saturday, the bombing device is still unclear. There's no real evidence of an RV taking out an entire street along with the buildings. And if the bomb was truly man-made, the impact shouldn't be that big. Okay, let me get to my real point here. What exactly is the explosion targeting? It just can't be taking out an entire street of shops. It leaves the biggest possibility to the AT&T building. This building is an old building which seems to house the regional telecommunication grids, and the explosion caused the servers to go down. But why Nashville? What exactly is it at Nashville that needs to go? Well, this is where the AT&T connections get a little awkward for the legacy media to present. AT&T's newly named director, William Kennard, who we repeatedly have covered before, he has ties to Staple Street Capitals and the Carlyle Group, which subsequently has ties to China. Now, William Kennard was announced as the chairman of AT&T board on November 6th, just 3 days after the election. AT&T was rumored to have been contracted by a Dominion voting system audit. Now, this bobbing took place at the old AT&T building. However, the actual big data center for everything else is the 333 Commerce Place big building. So they weren't actually targeting the data center in that building. The question is, why is the RV targeting this particular building then? Well, Silver Lake, an investment firm, acquired SolarWinds, also SunGard too. And SunGard has a building next to that old AT&T building where the explosion happened. Maybe coincidence. AT&T is a customer of SolarWinds, which was recently reported to have been hacked by potentially China along with other foreign actors. SolarWinds was acquired by Silver Lake Partners back in 2016. SolarWinds was brought back on the public stock market by Silver Lake Partners and Thomas Bravo LLC. Now that's according to the middle market. It says the company was taken private in 2016 with $4.5 billion deals struck by the two tech-focused firms. But in 2018, it went public again. Both Thomas Bravo and Silver Lake Partners are still holding board positions. As well, Silver Lake Partners is a firm that invested in Alibaba in 2011. Now, we know that Alibaba is one of the largest corporation giants in China, headed by Ma Yun, who is recently being targeted by Xi Jinping. Now, Silver Lake Partners also has its members with the Obama Foundation. On the website, Glenn Hutchins, co-founder of North Island and co-founder of Silver Lake, is one of the directors. Hutchins in 1992 joined the Bill Clinton's presidential transition team as a senior advisor focusing on economic policies. And after 2 years serving as special advisor on economics and healthcare policies in that Clinton administration, Hutchins returned to private equities, and this time joining the Blackstone Group in New York. And he then joined Silver Partners. Now, the Silver Lake Partners is heavily invested in many tech companies, including Skype, Motorola, Dell, and GoDaddy. Silver Lake is also invested in SunGard, which is another company that has a building across from the AT&T building. And at 200 Commerce Place, that's where the location of the SunGard data center is. Now, the address for SunGard is at the 200 Commerce Street, Nashville, which is just a little bit off from where the explosion was. Dominion also uses SolarWinds services called ServU, and Dominion is owned by Staple Street Capitals, which William Kennard is a board member. According to Sidney Powell's 270 pages of evidence, SSC has a great relationship with Carlyle, and Carlyle's is Dave Rubenstein's company, which was established in 1987. It has a great relationship with the Jiang family, which makes the whole thing very, very closely related to the CCP. Why was the attack so targeted at that particular building then? I actually doubt the attack was aimed at taking down the regular services that AT&T offers. This attack seems like a distraction to attack something bigger. Could there be something in particular at that side of the building that needed to be blown up and destroyed? Because the attack seems so random, yet so organized at the same time. Is it a false flag or a distraction or something? I mean, if it was a terrorist attack, there's no real clear intention, and there's no real damage that would have instilled fear into the citizens of the United States or even in Tennessee alone. We have a person of interest, but he just doesn't seem to stand any grounds or have property damage intentions. So what exactly is his motives? This leaves two possible guesses at the current stage. So the first one is that the whole thing is targeted at a particular section of the building, and that contained something important, and he had to be rid of it. Whether that was the rumored Dominion machines or whatever the servers are inside the walls had to be taken out. And the second possibility is that this whole event is a cover-up for another behind-the-scenes operation, which we have no idea right now. But the deathly silence from both sides of the political spectrum is what's scary. There's also a historical print shop called City Blue Imaging that caught on fire on Christmas Eve, and it apparently had a history of printing ballots. It could be pure coincidence, but there's just too many coincidences right now. There's just no real evidence suggesting that the factory did print ballots. However, how did the factory catch fire when no one was working on Christmas Eve? Alright, lots of information I just covered, so take some time to digest it and make sure to rewatch the videos and make your own judgment on this issue. It's a very crazy situation all around the world right now. But before I go, I hope you enjoyed today's content. Now make sure to comment below what you would like to see. As well, hit that like button to help us reach more audience on YouTube. and make sure to subscribe. So take care and have a good night.